Okay, now that our ovary and testes has been developed, so this is our ovary or testes. Now that our ovary or testes has been developed, we need to be able to make our major structures, such as our seminal vesicles and all that stuff. Remember, we had our kidney just behind here forming, with the tubules and everything just behind here forming like this. Okay. All right. So now that we've formed our ovary and our testes, something special happens. There now becomes an invagination of the genital ridge. So we have an invagination of the genital ridge. So this part right here pinches in. This part right here pinches in and folds it in on itself to form a paranephros duct. Similarly, on this side, you get a paranephros duct forming in right here, like this. So you have a paranephros duct on each side, and remember we have our mesonephros duct going down on its side, joining this cloaca. So this is our cloaca, and our cloaca is nothing but a ureterogenital sinus. Basically, it's where pee and poop mix. There's no distinction at this point, but we have our mesonephros coming in. We have our mesonephros. So this is part of the kidney. This has nothing to do with the genital system, but we have our mesonephros coming down and entering into the cloaca, and just there we have our paramesonephros next to the ovary or the testes. Now the paramesonephros also comes down into the cloaca like this on both sides. I'm just going to draw one side to show. Okay, so now that we have got this down, if we make a female, the two paranephros will come together like this. So if this was the paranephros, okay, the two paranephros will come together like this and join into the cloaca. So right now we're seeing that it will come together like this. Right now we're seeing that it forms one fused tube at the end, and the two superior ends are not fused. So right now it forms the ureterovaginal sinus. So this is the ureterovaginal sinus. The paranephros forms the ureterovaginal sinus, and these are the ovaries right next to him. Okay, so now that we've formed the ureterovaginal sinus, this mesonephros needs to degenerate. So I forgot to write down the distinction. So this is the mesonephros, and the pink one is the paranephros. Okay, so the mesonephros degenerates. So the mesonephros degenerates. So there's no more mesonephros in the female. I wish I could just take out all of it. So the mesonephros degenerates, and then the female is only left with the paranephros. Okay, now the paranephros forms the upper vagina. Okay, so the paranephros, remember it's fused, it forms the upper vagina, the cervix, uterus, and fallopian tubes. And also what ends up happening is that the ovary, there is a ligament attached to it called the gubernaculum, and the gubernaculum pulls the ovary down. Okay, pulls the ovary down. So our ovary ends up being, so now the gubernaculum has pulled it down. Our ovary ends up being here like this, and with it, now our gubernaculum has pulled it down. So this teal thing is the gubernaculum, and with that we have the fallopian tubes developing like this. I know it's not a great fallopian tubes. Okay, so this is the female. Okay, eventually the cloaca will split into two. Eventually the cloaca will split into two, and it will form the urethra and the vagina. So this will be the urethra, and right here will be the vagina. So we don't have both pee and poop mixing together. So this will be our urethra here, if it was a female, and this will be our vagina here. Okay, and the mesonephros, which was degenerated, becomes the oophoron or the para-oophoron. Okay, now that our testes has been formed, remember in the previous video we did the female major structures. Now that our testes has been formed, we're going to talk about the major structure. And just like the female, the kidney is still developing at the back and whatnot. Okay, so we have our we need to draw in our cloaca. Remember in the previous video I said the cloaca is just where the rectum and the bladder has not been distinguished. So you just have one big pouch playing the role as both the bladder and the rectum. So this is our cloaca. I'll put a C for that. And then, just like in the female, we have our gubernaculum pulling the testes down. Okay, and we still have our mesonephros draining into the gubernaculum on both sides. On both sides we have that. Okay, and we still have our invagination of the genital ridge called the paranephros. Okay, called the paranephros, and the paranephros also drains into the cloaca. So with the testes, we know that the testes we learned previously that in the seminal vesicles we have the Sertoli cells, and we have the primordial germ follicles. Okay, so in the seminal vesicles, the Sertoli cells, they really produce three things, but only one of them are essential for embryonal gonadal development, and that is Mullerian inhibiting factor. Okay, and I forgot to mention in the previous video that the paranephros is also called as the Mullerian duct. So this is the paranephros. The paramesonephros, I should say. It's also called as the Mullerian duct. And the mesonephros is also called as the Wolffian duct. Okay, excuse my dog there. Okay, so in the Sertoli cells produce Mullerian inhibiting factor. So from that we can now know, since the paramesonephros is called the Mullerian duct, the Sertoli cells producing Mullerian inhibiting factor will obviously inhibit this paranephros duct. So what ends up happening is that the paramesonephros duct degenerates because we're making a male. We don't want the vagina in the uterus like the female. So the paranephros degenerates. Let me see if I can get a clean sweep of that. So we have no more paramesonephros. We just have a mesonephros. Okay. Let me just draw our testes back. So this is what we have. Also, our Leydig cells produce testosterone. Now, testosterone helps prevent the degeneration of the mesonephros duct, the mesonephros or the Wolffian duct. Remember that in the female, the mesonephros duct degenerated. The mesonephros duct degenerated because we weren't forming a male, okay, and also because there was no testosterone. So the mesonephros duct differentiates into the seed structures. So the mesonephros duct differentiates into the seed structures, and what seed stands for is seminal vesicle, epididymis, efferent ductule, and vas deferens. Okay, so remember I said that our testes right here is pulled down by our gubernaculum. Okay, so now we have our testes. Remember, the testes is an abdominal structure, but our testes needs to go down into the pelvic region. So that's what's happening here. So our testes was pulled, and now our mesonephros also goes down like this. Also goes down and curves like this into the testes on both sides. Okay. Remember, the mesonephros is a vestigial structure for kidney development. Though it's one of the first structures for kidney development, it does not involve in the function of the kidney. So this is what we have. We have our testes, and then we have our mesonephros forming the help forming the seminal vesicle, epididymis, erectile, ductus efferentis, and vas deferens. Okay, now we know that our vas deferens needs to drain into the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct, and just like in the female, the cloaca needs to split into the rectum and the urethra. Okay, and then the vas deferens will drain into the so this area here will be the urethra, and obviously on the outside we have our genital structures forming similarly to the female. Okay, remember I said that the paramesonephros needs to degenerate. Okay, so the paramesonephros degenerate. Now the paramesonephros, let's assume that this is our testes. This is our testes, and you know that on the testes we have our epididymis. Right here we have our epididymis forming the vas deferens. Okay, so we have some appendages of the testes. So this is the appendix. This is the appendix of the epididymis, and this was formed due to remnants of the paramesonephros. Okay, we also have the we have an appendix. I should change the color so it'll be easier. Okay, so we have remnant structures. Okay, so the appendix of the testes itself is from the paramesonephros. The appendix of the epididymis is from the mesonephric duct or the mesonephros, and the paraepididymis, this is the paraepididymis, is from the mesonephric tubules.